Ooh, okay. So now I will read the affirmation. If I can get it to come up on my screen. Here we go. Okay, this is the affirmation for July. I open my mind and heart to the power and truth to be spoken through me. I stand for the highest of integrity possible. I find my personal power as I speak my truth and lean into it powerfully. Spirit speaks through me, and I am transformed. And so it is. Okay, so now I get to introduce our speaker. And please help me welcome our beloved Reverend Neil. I mean, not Reverend Neil. It's not Reverend Neil. It's Reverend Joel Fotinos. I'm looking at Neil. Reverend Joel Fotinos.
We get mixed up all the time.
They look so much alike.
They look so much alike. Hi, everybody. It's so great to see everybody. I see some, gosh, people I haven't seen in a long time. So great to see everybody. So we're going to talk today about waking up to life, which is a huge topic, and I'm going to try to fit a lot in. I could go on and on for hours. I mean, nearly every religion, every spiritual teacher, every philosopher along the way has used that metaphor of waking up in some form or other. The idea that we could be asleep to something and then something else happens, like an event or a game-changing idea, and we suddenly see everything in a new way. We wake up to what is true and perhaps what has always been true, but we had been asleep to it. It's like, you know, that hymn, Amazing Grace, I once was blind, but now I see. I once was asleep to something, then something happened to wake me up, and now I see and experience it in a new way. And it's sometimes harder than we think. And that's what we're going to talk about today. It's a big topic. We can't cover, of course, the entire topic in just this little time, but we'll do some exploring. But first, let me tell you a story. I was recently in a grocery store and had a little experience. I was shopping the cereal aisle. My son Rafi loves cereal. He actually just loves two kinds of cereal, by the way, and you can't get the store generic version of it. You have to get the name brand version of it. So I was there picking up a box for him, and I go to the area where the cereal was, that whole long aisle in the grocery store, of the chain grocery store, and there were three kind of options of boxes for that cereal. I mean, there's also plastic cups filled with the cereal, snacks filled with the cereal and stuff, but I just wanted a box of cereal, and there were three sizes of boxes. So there was basically small, medium, and large. And the small size had about 10 ounces in it, and the large had 20 ounces, so twice as much. Though the boxes didn't look that different in size because, they try to play with perception and value, but that's a different talk. So anyway, the small box, the 10 ounce, was one price. I think it was about $5, let's say $5, which, by the way, I cannot believe how expensive cereal has got. So it was $5. And then the large was $6. So already you can see that the large was a better value, right? But on this day, this chain grocery store had a sign, a big sign for the small size saying, buy two, get one for free. So if you buy two and they're $5 each, you're spending $10, but you get three. They're each 10 ounces, so that's 30 ounces, okay? 30 ounces for $10. And the large was also on sale. Instead of $6, it was $5.25. It just had a little sale sign, whereas the 2-for-1 had like one of those big kind of banner signs. Yeah, I'm sure all of you have been in a grocery store and you know what I mean. So my first impulse, it's the impulse the store wanted me to have, by the way, was to buy three of the small boxes for the price of two. And on the surface of things, that made the most sense. And I was reaching for the 3 boxes in hand, but Rafi goes through those little boxes so fast. So I just was thinking, do I want to get this or do I want to get that? I promise the story's going somewhere. At the same time this is happening, there's a man standing right next to me, and he's also buying cereal. And we talk a little bit, and he says that he loves the same cereal, and he eats it every day, and he has for years. So now, when I shop, and I really hope I'm not the only one who does this, but I kind of shop and have a running dialogue with myself out loud. So I go up and down aisles, and I'm like, all right, now this aisle is the spices aisle. Do we need any spices? And then I was like, did I use up the mayonnaise, or do we still have another? I just do that. I'm in my bubble. And in fact, when somebody recognizes me and says, Joel, I'm like, because I'm so in a bubble. Anyway, so that's what I'm doing. I'm having this conversation with myself. We chat for a minute, but I'm trying to decide what I want to do. So I think, okay, I know how I'll decide it. I'll look at that. You know how on the labels on the shelf, they have the little thing in the corner that tells you the price per unit. So in this case, it was the price per ounce. And that way you can make an informed decision, based on the price. And I thought, oh, I'll do that. The problem is that I forgot my reading glasses. And at this store, that little box is dark red with black type. And so I'm looking at this and I'm saying out loud, I can't really read this. What does that say? And so I turned to the guy and I said, would you just happen to read me these 2 numbers, the price per ounce, please? And he said, sure. And the price per ounce on the small at the sale price of buy 2, get 1 free came to, I think, 30 cents per ounce. And the price per ounce for the large size, which was also on sale, but less flashy sale, was 26 cents per ounce. It was actually cheaper per ounce to buy the larger one. Now, 4 cents per ounce isn't that big of a deal, right? But it was the principle of the thing. And I just thought they want to fool you into thinking you're spending less by buying more. And you walk away thinking that you got a deal. And for them, instead of getting $5.25 from you, now they've got $10 from you. And, by the way, later when I was thinking of this, I went online to the grocery chain down the street to see how much they charged for the small box. And it was $3.50 instead of $5, which made me think that the other grocery store chain raised the price before they did the 2-for-1 sale. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't, not saying, but it was more information. By the way, I normally don't spend this much time on things like cereal price per ounce. But here's the crux of the story. You know how if you are in a grocery store and you go up and down the aisles, and sometimes you keep passing the same people, almost like you're following each other, right? So you go down the aisle this way and somebody's coming this way, and then you go to the next aisle and you're coming down this way and they're going this way, well, that's what this man and I seem to be doing. And so the man who helped me read the little smaller shelf signs and chatted about the cereal, when the next aisle, when we passed each other, we kind of nodded at each other and smiled in that acknowledgement. And I looked down, I happened to look down in his cart, which was filled with groceries. And he had 1 box of cereal, 1 small box. So me being me, I said, why did you get 1 small box when it was cheaper to get the larger one? In fact, for just 25 cents more, you get the equivalent of 2 of those boxes. Seems logical to me. And he said, well, I just always get this size. Now, that stopped me in my tracks. He kept going, but I just stood there for a second. I was just kind of like, huh. And truthfully, I don't care what cereal he bought. It's not like I cared at all. I really don't care. But I really was struck by him making the least good choice. Of all the choices he had, this was the least logical one, the one that made the least good financial sense. He may have had perfectly good reasons. If he's watching this ever, he can reach out to me and tell me the reasons if he feels like it. But the reason he imparted to me, admittedly a stranger, was that this is just what he always gets. the one box of small. He didn't care about the best choice. He just was getting the usual choice. How does this tie into waking up? I'll tell you. I'm glad you asked. Because in that one story, that one example, we can glean really possible lessons about waking up. He can have his own experience of the event, but what I took away from it was this. First, we don't always make the best choices that are the best for us, right? That was certainly true for him. For 25 cents more, he could have had twice the amount. But in a larger sense, we don't always make the best choices for ourselves. Second, it showed me that we can get stuck in what we've always done. He didn't even bother. I mean, even after I had shown him, because I had him read the price per ounce, and he only bought one of the boxes. The price per ounce for that was 3. So he ended up paying 90 cents per ounce, if I'm doing math right, which is not my strong point. But third, and this is a big lesson, what is told to us isn't always the best thing for us. Just because it has a big sign and just because it says something is 2, buy 2, get 1 free, and I mean that metaphorically now, doesn't mean that it's the best thing for us. We've got to go deeper. We've got to keep reading the fine print of things. Otherwise, we're just going to be asleep to the choices that we've always made. By the way, that story does not just end there. On that same trip, that same experience in the grocery store. So after he and I passed each other, I stopped and pondered, why did he do that? Then I kept going. I mean, I didn't stand there for 10 minutes pondering his cereal choices. I kept going. And, but then suddenly I hit this immense hunger. And it was early in the morning, because that's the best time to shop. The grocery store is the least busy then. And I'm like, oh, I'm so hungry. And I normally don't eat early in the morning. And I was like, what is this? What do I want to eat? So I was going up and down the aisles thinking, do I want something sweet? Do I want something salty? You know, what about this? What about that? And I'm just kind of going up and down. And I'm thinking, I never get hungry like this in the morning. What is going on? So I decided that I would stop to figure out what was going on. So I stopped. And I decided to ask myself, what am I hungry for? Now, at first I meant, like, what am I hungry for? Salty, sweet. But standing there in the local market, over by where the Entenmann's, Entenmann's, they have the boxed pastries, donuts and stuff. They have a whole end cap in the store. So I'm at the Entenmann's end cap surrounded by donuts and muffins. And right there, I took a deep breath and I just kind of went within. I didn't even close my eyes. I just went, what am I really hungry for? And asking that question, my mind answered me. And what it said was, you are anxious about something that you have to do later on in the morning. I had this thing happening at work, this kind of meeting that I was anxious about. I was dreading, kind of. I mean, I love my job, but this thing that was going to happen later that morning, I was dreading. And rather than feel that feeling, my brain rushed in trying to get a dopamine rush so I wouldn't feel it anymore. Waking up to life means going deeper than the surface. And you don't even have to go into like deep meditative spaces. You don't have to cross your legs and have the ding. You don't have to put on music. You don't have to be in the right space where there's no noise. You can be right in the grocery store next to the Entenmann's boxes of glazed donuts and those mini chocolate chip cake brownies that they have. Not that I noticed, and I didn't buy them, but you can be right there, take a breath, and find out what's beneath the surface. You can wake up in the moment wherever you are. Because thoughts and feelings are on the surface of our lives, and they come and they go and they come and they go. And who's thinking those thoughts anyway? Michael Singer, in his books, Living Untethered and the Untethered Soul, he says the person who's giving you those thoughts is like your inner roommate, right? So I have called that inner roommate different names. Currently, I call him Sean. So Sean is in my head thinking, just feeding me all sorts of thoughts and all this kind of stuff. And the thing is there's these roommates in our head, and we all have them. These are the holders for what I call faux thoughts, F-A-U-X. Faux means kind of fake. They appear one way, but they're really fake. So these are the kind of the faux thoughts. And these roommates inside of us are usually they hold our fears and our shadows and our negativities and our prejudices, like, why did that guy buy that box of cereal? That was Sean, my inner Sean, asking that question. So anyway, so I had this experience of waking up in the moment, and I just felt my feeling, and guess what happened? That intense hunger went away. Waking up allowed me to have a different experience. And we can do that on big scales, and we can do that on little scales. In this day and age where a lot of philosophy is put on memes, and there's so much misinformation out there where people try to get your attention through the most shocking, the most outrageous, the most scary ways, from headlines to social media posts to theories, conspiracy theories, etc. It's just easy to believe what we see and read. It sounds, to Sean, my inner thinker, our inner roommate, it sounds reasonable. But being awake, and I'm talking like spiritually here, psychologically, means not just to smile and accept what seems to be true on the surface. On the surface, that cereal seemed like a good deal. On the surface, it felt like I was just having an intense hankering. But when we go deeper, that's where the gold is. That's where we wake up. One of the things I love about our Science of Mind philosophy is that from the very first Wednesday night service I went to, way back in the 1990s in Denver, Colorado, and I walked in, and I've said this before, I sat in the back row right by the exit sign in case it was a cult and I needed to get out of there. The very first thing that Dr. Marjorie Stone did, who was a woman pastor, by the way, was she blessed all people of all faiths, and she blessed people of no faith. I was blown away. That was like a whole new way of thinking of things. I didn't have to make anyone else wrong for me to feel right about what I believe. One of the things I've loved also about the Science of Mind philosophy is we have no pope, we have no special person. In fact, I recently learned that Ernest Holmes didn't even want his grave publicly told where it is, because he didn't want people making like pilgrimages there, because that would put him on a different platform instead of just being like everyone else. We don't have dogma that you have to believe. We do have principles, but we don't like force you to believe them and say, you're out if you don't believe number 8. We don't do that. We don't encourage mass sameness. It's like that great scene in that movie, The Life of Brian, the Monty Python film, which if you haven't seen it, you should see it, where Life of Brian takes place in the time of Jesus, where there's all these teachers that have followers. Jesus is one, but people mistake Brian for one of these teachers, and Brian's just a guy. And he keeps trying to get rid of them. The more he tries to get rid of these followers, the more they want to follow him. And finally, he goes to this thing, and there's this sea of followers that are just hanging on his every word. And he says to them, no, you guys got it wrong. You must think for yourselves. And in unison, the crowd goes, we will think for ourselves. We don't do that. We don't do that. Ernest Holmes, in fact, in all of his writings, basically says over and over again, we shouldn't take his words for truth. We should use our own minds. We should test it out for ourselves. And that is so, so refreshing, especially in the area of faith. Oh my gosh, where there's so much misinformation and control and everything. We're fed a lot of spiritual information out there, and it's important to do what I did in the grocery store. Just stop, breathe, think, and feel what makes sense and what doesn't, and read the fine print. Explore. I grew up in the Christian faith, Lutheran, then evangelical, then charismatic. And for years, I just took what the pastors and the church leaders said at face value. They kept telling me, buy 2, get 1 free was the best deal for me. But when I stopped to actually think about things, and when I began to do the thing that the church leaders specifically told me not to do, which was question things, things started changing for me. And I started asking questions that they didn't like, if the first gospel of Jesus was written 40 years or so after he died, how can we believe those are the literal words? And if he was performing these giant miracles and attracting these giant crowds, why isn't he mentioned anywhere in the many books written at the time he was actually alive, except for one brief mention in one line in a book written by a history writer named Josephus? If these miracles were amazing, why didn't anybody else write about it? The accounts of the miracles were written decades after he died. Or what about the fact that the 4 Gospels have 4 different accounts of his birth, and they have 4 different accounts of his death? Which one's correct? Or I was told over and over again, I had to believe the Bible literally. Some of you may relate to this, by the way, including like Jonah and the whale, or Noah and his ark. And if you look at that story, God gets mad because millions of people in other nations aren't worshiping him. He's a him, of course. So he made a flood to kill millions of people. And then he tells Noah to build an ark and put 2 of each animal in them. And I'm supposed to believe this literally, but just this morning, thinking about this, I looked up frogs. Do you know there are 4,810 different known species of frogs? Are we supposed to believe that he took 2 of each of those? And that's just frogs. Or how about this one? 2 people ate an apple and condemned literally billions and billions of people through history to be broken and sinful. Or I'm supposed to take the Bible literally, but I'm also supposed to conveniently forget the passages that tell us that women are not supposed to wear gold jewelry. Sorry, ladies. Or that divorce is terrible. But I think actually my pastor back then was on his 3rd wife. But that was okay, he said, because if that was of the time and the times change, and Jesus fulfilled the law, but evidently not for gay people. Or why condemn billions of people to hell for following the religion they were born into if it happens to be a different religion? And they believe in that just as strongly. Or those people who've never heard of Jesus, suddenly now spending eternity in damnation, like all of these things. And my church leaders kept saying, yes, yes, yes. My church leader said to me that Gandhi, who did great works, this was actually a sermon he gave. Gandhi, who did great works, is in hell, but a serial killer who believes in Jesus is in heaven. I mean, how do I make sense of that? And we're not supposed to question it. We're supposed to go back to sleep. I was told that even contemplating these things was sinful because who am I to question the word of God? And God can read my mind. So go back to sleep. Go back to sleep. Now, just to be clear and avoid any angry emails I might get later, I'm not saying there wasn't a Jesus. I'm not saying you can't believe whatever you want to believe. You can buy whatever box of cereal you want to buy. What I am saying is know what you really believe and why you believe it, and not just what you are spoon-fed by religion, by the media, by anything. Read, study, listen to a variety of viewpoints. And as I began to ask these kinds of questions, I began to realize that even in the stories they told, the connection Jesus had to his source was direct. He didn't, in the stories, he didn't get it from anyone else. So science of mind is a philosophy that suggests you go direct to source as well. Go direct, wake up. But it can be tricky. After all, it's hard to wake up after taking that Ambien of spoon-fed teaching for years and being assaulted by it through media and social media all the time. It's hard to read the fine print and make independent conclusions. But the people I look up to the most are those that turned out the noise and they tuned into their own connection. These are people like Richard Rohr, Thomas Merton, Ernest Holmes, all the early New Thought pioneers, many of which, by the way, were women, and Julia Cameron, who wrote The Artist's Way. These are people who literally stay connected inwardly rather than be swayed outwardly. They all pointed to questioning experts, following your own path. I mean, people like Thomas Merton, the notorious Catholic monk, he got in trouble constantly from the church for looking for truth everywhere. They kept saying to him, hey, we're the only keepers of truth here. We're it. But then he would go outside of his faith and find truth there. And he looked at other religions, and he looked at art, and he looked at science, and he held conferences with women, which they hated, and he traveled the world. And he was always in trouble for finding truth everywhere. Well, guess what? We're like that at Science of Mind as well. We look for truth everywhere. We don't tell anybody else what truth is. We discover the truth by waking up to it ourselves. It's so much easier to stay in the status quo and not wake up. When we stay in the status quo, we can feed our ego, we can feed our ignorance, we can feed our fears, we can feed our prejudices, we can feed our victimhood, we can feed our separation. But you cannot go deep when you feed those negative things. Why? Because then we're not personally connected. We're just connected through what is out there and what we don't like. Anthony DeMello, in his book, Awareness, which I know some of you have studied, he has that great line in there, one of my all-time favorite lines ever, where he says, people don't want to wake up because waking up is hard. They just want their toys fixed and go back to sleep. But we, in this philosophy, are not those people. We're the people who started waking up and want to go deeper. Yes, a personal connection to go deeper and wake up requires more of us. It requires us to not just accept what others say or what the human race thought is, and it requires us to live our own lives. There's very little accolades for this, but I'd rather be an original Joel than to be a copy of others. So that's that. And in closing, let me just say, how do we do this? Very quickly, question everything. Anytime something doesn't make sense, make a note of it. Some things won't make sense yet, but might make sense later. But it's good to ask questions and not just accept things on the surface. 2, study. Study the science of mind, study others. By the way, if you're deconstructing your faith, like I have done, read people like John Shelby Spong or Brian McLaren. I'll put their names in the chat so you don't need to ask. Read, study. Next, purge the poison. In other words, when you have these thoughts and feelings, bring them out of you, write them down. If you were really, really affected by a lot of this stuff, find a therapist or a spiritual director or a support group, or take classes. And then finally, connect. I think a great way to connect, I mean, there's a million ways, but is to just go for walks, be in nature. I think my Bible has become more just walks in nature and breathing. That's it. I mean, we all are born, we're all going to die. In that small space in between those two dates, as we become adults, much of how we choose to see our life and walk through our world is our choice. So what will we do with that? Are we going to just parrot others? No, not this group. Not this group of people. Are we going to just coast? Nope, not this group of people. Are we going to blame others, be a victim, spend energy bringing other people down? Not in this group. Not in this group. We're a group of people who follow our own paths. And, we reject the status quo thinking as our thinking. That doesn't mean we won't agree with a lot of what's in the status quo, by the way. It doesn't mean you have to disagree with everything and be a contrarian. It just means that when we think something, we're thinking our own thoughts. Then and only then will we be forging our own path, learning about what each one of us on our own think about things, and perhaps even help, by creating an example, we help other people do that as well. That is what I believe a life of waking up means. So let's take this into our, just a prayer of affirmation right now, where we can move into the place of let's just do what the stories of Jesus said he did, which is connect to a source directly. You're not connecting through me, and I'm not connecting it through you. We're each directly connecting to our own source, which is just one breath deeper. Like I did in the grocery store, just take one breath and go deeper. And it is in this place that we now know that underneath the choppy waters of our thoughts, our inner roommate, the feelings, the this, the that, underneath we can always return and go to our source so that we can think for ourselves, make choices, the best choices we can at any given moment, evolve as we grow, and to always choose to be awake to life. That's the way life lives through us, is as us. And so we choose this life as our life now. Breathing deeply, we release this, knowing it to be true for us, each one of us in our own way, right here, right now. And together we say, and so it is.
Oh, beautiful segue. Once I get my music going again. There we go. Oh, wow. Going to source. So perfect. I come to you when fear and doubt are calling. I run to you when I feel my spirit falling. I come to you when I feel my life is stalling. I come to you. I come to you when I need answered questions. I run to you for quiet moments of reflection. I come to you 'cause there's freedom in confession. I come to you. One day I really heard the words, seek and ye shall find. I realized to change my life, I had to change my mind. And so I find a quiet place to bring my cares to you. And in that silent space, I hear your wisdom coming through. I come to you when life gets too demanding. I run to you for peace and understanding. I come to you when my limits need expanding. I come to you, before everything I do. I come to you. I come to you. The voice inside of me, the spirit inside of me, I come to you. The life inside of me, the joy inside of me, I come to you. I come to you. I come to you. I come to you. Deep inside of me, that little voice, I come to you. I know you know. I come to you. I come to you.